What's up, extraordinaires? Brett Young with Urban Young coming at you right now. Hey, we're excited. We've got some cool guest appearances on some other podcast episodes, and we wanted to put those in the feed just to guys give you as much content as we possibly could. On some of these playbacks, we just decided there was rich information that's served with our same message here, which is epitomizing excellence in everything that we do. So we hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. It was fun being on there. We want to say thank you for all of the podcast hosts for the collaboration. And as we do these guest appearances, we'll make sure to drop these not only in the feed for the podcast, but also right here on YouTube too. So thank you guys so much for your support and your love, and be extraordinary.
To have you, my man. It's been a while. We were just talking about how long it is since you and I met. We're going back probably 13 years. We haven't actually met in person yet, just through the internet, but I've been watching you grow, and I've been amazed at the your accomplishments, both personally and in your business. So I thought we'd bring you on here and talk a little bit about that. And I know you have a podcast and a passion for personal growth and all that. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, man, the same, vice versa. It's I appreciate it. It's humbling to be asked. And Mark, we've been internet buddies for 13, 14 years now, which is wild.
Yeah.
And I just love, like the social media is incredible because you talk about being able to have these connections with people that we'd never have met in person. It blows me away with just this type of stuff. So you're right. We're way overdue at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, so take me back to the beginning. When you first started your company, we'd love to get a little bit of a background on that and learn about it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, at this point, just to give kind of some context, I guess, kind of where we are today. We own an independent insurance agency here in Florida. We have 7 offices throughout the state. This year, we'll do probably around 55 million in sales. We have about 40 team members. So we're pretty, it's a sizable operation and we're doing some really cool stuff, but it's funny because we started with just one policy at a time from scratch. And so that's probably where we met. We started the business about 12 years ago. I have 2 partners. One is my brother. The other one is my big brother from another mother. We've been dialing that in for a very, very long time. And so previously, before I got in the insurance business specifically, it's a property and casualty insurance firm. So we sell anything from obviously home, auto, umbrella, life insurance, commercial insurance, a lot of big commercial outfits. But before we did that, I was in the network marketing space, and I did that at a high level for about 5 years. And I learned from some of the best team builders in the world. And that's kind of where I honed the skills in regards to culture, team building, how to lead a voluntary army, and, consequentially led me to personal development and personal growth, and entrepreneurship. So that's kind of my background. And then, the kind of the secret sauce for us is just taking that personal growth aspect, that came from these guys and gals that we learned from, and bringing it into a space to where most of the emphasis is on professional development. Most of it is on how to be good at a craft, how to excel within your profession. When the reality is, what's very, very true to me and what I have observed is that you could take 2 people of the same kind skill level. One has success, one doesn't, in the same ecosystem with the same tools, with the same information. Why is that? Right? Like, what is that? And for us, it is because, the axe is sharpened with this one through personal development, and the axe is not sharpened with this one. So that contextualness that, leads some people to have an enormous success and some people to fizzle out is kind of that mystery in regards to recruiting and team building and staffing. And for us, that's just been a big, big impact in regards to our business, because in essence, that was something that really changed our lives, and we gravitated towards. And we like to say we're a personal development company that happens to sell insurance. We've put a much, 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 much heavier emphasis on the development of the human rather than to become a good insurance agent. And so I think that's what sets us apart, and I think that's a secret sauce that a lot of people miss.
That's awesome. So for you personally, was it trial and error? So in other words, like, you go to a Tony Robbins seminar for 4 days, you get all fired up. You're like, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to hit $1 million and blah, blah, blah. And then, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the further you get away from that, the more you're like, okay, I guess I'll just have another cup of coffee,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. That's great, man. Yeah. I mean, I think number one, we all are subject to the human conditioning, which in essence means that that's going to happen all the time, right? There are seasons and flows of life. So just becoming aware of that is probably the biggest thing. So, to think that I don't have those today is simply just not true. We're all on our own journey, and we have that rhythm. So, but for me, the biggest thing that happened is I never read a book ever, especially personal growth, self-help, any of that stuff. I mean, I wasn't a good student. I was not on a path that was going to put me in a position to win in life. I was really kind of lost. I had a bunch of jobs. I just didn't understand why I didn't enjoy or wasn't attracted to excelling in those things. I had been entrepreneurial, as a young person, but I honestly, I didn't know it was entrepreneurship. I thought it was just me figuring out how to make money without working, candidly. So I always perceived myself to be lazy. And somebody changed my life. They handed me a book, and they said, you'll never grow past the person that you become, and you got to work harder on yourself than you do any business or any profession. And if you do that, you'll have success with wherever you land. And they handed me a book. It was called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And in that book, it talks about the little disciplines practiced over a long period of time that either lead you to success or failure. One of those decisions will never destroy you, and one of those decisions will never, make you a success. It's the daily disciplines that seem to make no difference at all, but compounded over years and time and effort, they make all the difference in the world. And so at that point, it was like, okay, this makes sense. I'd played basketball growing up. I play sport, and you hear about practice, and these conceptual things subconsciously, but it never clicked for me on a professional level. And so at that point, I had made a commitment to whatever it takes. At that point, I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I will spend the rest of my life figuring out how to stay into this craft. And at that point, that was like kind of that day of decision where you go, okay, cool. Well, it's like this definiteness, like Napoleon Hill calls it the definiteness of purpose, right? Like it was already done at that point. It was just a matter of, I may end up, wherever I end up on the spectrum of quote unquote perceived success. But it's kind of like it's almost nauseating sometimes, the back and forth game we have with ourselves on if I should do this or if I should. It's like we negotiate, is this worth it? Is it not worth it? Am I in the right place? Am I not in the right place? Should I get up and go to the gym? Should I do this today? Should I not? There's way more energy exuded in that personal battle in between the ears than the actual effort of doing the craft itself. So I think for me, that was a big win, because it allowed the pressure to be relieved, because I really wasn't second guessing whether or not I was going to do this or not. It was just a matter of getting up and what's the next task at hand. So that book changed my life. And that was my first book on the path of personal development. And at that point, I just started to consume as much content as I possibly could. I got addicted. I was like the doorway of opportunity just got, kicked in. And it was like I could see for the first time, and all the things that maybe my parents taught me and good mentors that I didn't necessarily listen to. It was just a tweak in philosophy, a tweak into my mindset that said, okay, all this stuff makes sense now. Now I can see it for what it is. So yeah. And then, so in essence, somebody gave me a book and it changed my life. And I've spent the better part of, my career trying to do the same for other people now.
Amazing, man. I would say congrats. I see lots of you in me, like I see lots of me in many others, but I've worked with many people, guiding them as well, and just seeing that there's so much potential, and you just have to recondition yourself. It's just that, like just start with simplest things, and recondition yourself and implement those habits, right? Implement those habits in your daily tasks.
Yeah.
And life just changing, it's like, and what I perceived from you, that you did it, right? And that's really changed your way of seeing things. And it's, for me, in spirituality would say, oh man, you just get on the higher frequency and you start to see openings for you, so that's how we would say in spirituality. But as we know, everything can be spiritual and nothing can be spiritual, because that's the life, so
yeah. I mean, like, be the change, right? Like, what's the quote? If you change the way you look at things, everything will change, something like that. And for me, everything was there the whole time. It was just, I took responsibility, in essence, was like, okay, I need to change. Like, this is me. This isn't the world. This isn't external. This is internal. And, the external is just a reflection of the internal, right? Like, and for me, that was a day of responsibility, if you will, that said, all right, this isn't, I can blame anybody and everybody all I want. But that's not really what's going on here. It's I haven't grown, like, and so I've been given a gift. I've been given a second chance, and I'm not going to squander it, so
what are those habits for you, which you like? Obviously you don't skip habits anymore, because it's just rooted into your daily life, and it becomes just easy. I will give example, and I like to compare this to my son. He's actually young kid. He's 12 today. So, and there was this situation in school, and he's actually the guy who really has the talent for hard work. And I was like, wow, I wish I would have that talent, hardworking talent, because he loves basketball, and I don't need to tell him go and do something. He just goes by himself every day, 3-4 hours, just going to the gym and working out by himself.
Wow.
And then there was a situation in school where he's like, he didn't get the best marks in math and somewhere else. And he was like, I don't like this school. I don't want to go to school. Like, and this you can consider as some laziness or whatever, as you said, And then I took him on trip, and we just bonded as a father and son.
Yep.
And I said, listen, just do your best, find the reason why you want to do it. And somehow he found that ability to follow through to school. And it was quite hard time for him, like 3 months till he got all A's. Like, he just became one of the best in school. He got, special diploma, whatever you call. And then lately he told me, Dad, I don't feel like I'm really putting in that work anymore, because it became like a habit for me to get those A's. It just naturally comes. And he's like, I don't feel like I'm really working on that. It just comes. And I was like, that's your habit, right? This is where you just things that comes naturally for you, because you put in the work, you follow through for certain amount of time, and then it just comes. It just doesn't feel hard work anymore.
It's so good. It's so good. And he's coming to this epiphany by himself, right? Like, he's accidentally stumbling into one of the biggest building blocks for any type of achievement, right? Like, that's amazing. What a cool story. I like that aha. It's like, yeah, and it doesn't feel hard anymore. Like, yeah, because it's not supposed to. That's awesome. What a cool story. Yeah. I mean, some of those habits for me, a biggest one, my anchor is the physical body. I think a lot of people say, well, I'm going to get my mindset right. And then after I get my mindset, then I'll work out, because my mind will be correct. And I've got the right conditioning and as far as discipline, but I don't believe that it's that way. I think we get to this, I think we get to the spirit. I think we get to the highest level of consciousness through the body, through the vessel, like, so for me, I train the body so I could train the mind. and I do hard things and see if I can, what happens. All your character comes out when you do tough things physically, the good, the bad, the ugly, the voice in your head, because we're all fighting that little voice in our head every single day. Do you have the ability to put them at the kiddie table and not give them the attention, or is that voice so loud that you haven't trained it to be quiet? So the physical fitness for me is a big deal. I never worked out. I was 155 pounds when when I started this journey. I'm a $195 now, and I'm lean and strong. And so that's been a process of changing my DNA. And I think that level of progressiveness and seeing that, seeing what you can do with the body, in essence, has made me significantly more sharp on not only the mental but spiritual level. So for me, that's the biggest one, because you show me a person who can, like your son, go to the gym and have physical exertion. Not only the fact that I think that's just important from a relief standpoint as far as just stress, but that is an anchor for me in regards to sets the pace for my day, my weeks, my months, my years. So that's a big habit for me. And then 10 pages of a good book a day. That is a non-negotiable. And that's kind of the slight edge mentality, right? I don't need to read 100 pages today. I just need to read 10. I just got to get 10 in. But if I get 10 pages in of a good book a day, that's 8, 9, 10 books a year. You compound that over a decade. You compare myself to the person who's got the same skill level. We don't even fit into the same box anymore. Like, you can't even recognize us. We're so different. So for me, it's consuming good content like that, like very little each day, and then anchoring my days and my weeks with some sort of physical intensity to condition my mindset and be ready for whatever comes my way. Because the other thing that I've noticed is that this doesn't get easy in regards to what level you're at. Like, the habits are easy, but the cheese changes, right? The obstacles just it's like, I'm on level 4. Okay, level 4 is easy, but if I'm progressing, like, right, if my idea is to move upwards, I'm trying to go to level 5. Then once I go to level 5, the game gets harder, and then once I get to level 6, the game gets harder. And so that friction that you're feeling becomes normal, but it never, for me, it's never gone away, because it's just become a bigger challenge and a bigger challenge and a bigger challenge, bigger problems, because there's bigger opportunities and bigger things to solve, and bigger quote unquote stresses. By the way, pressure is a real thing. Stress is self-inflicted, but those types of things have become patterns. And by anchoring these little small habits, I think what's happened for me is I've learned to just embrace, enjoy, and understand that's just part of the process. It's not like, okay, if I could just get this one done, it'll be done. It's like, no. As soon as I get that one done, there's going to be another one. But for a while earlier in, this cycle of growth, you're just, if I can just get past this, I'll be good. If I can just get past this, I'll be good. And it just never works that way, and it's funny. My wife always, gives me a hard time and jokes about it. She goes, yeah, if you could just open this one office, right? After you just do this one office, or after you do just one project. And she rolls her eyes, because she knows that there's going to be 2 more things, 3 more things right after that. It's just, the cool thing about this journey, and for your listeners that are listening, and if I could give anything, is the cool thing is, once you prime this pump, you can't shut it off. Like it's the wave. Once you get the wave going, the wave just comes in so fast and furious that, like, you just better be good at surfing, because you're not going to stop the wave. You've already put something in motion that's bigger than you. And that's fun. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. Sometimes it's scary, but it's fun. And, you're watching years and years and years of just discipline show up. And it's just not an accident. Like, from externally, people don't understand, but from where you sit and where your vantage point, it's just, it was the little things that you did every single day.
Wow, man.
There's so much to unpack, right?
Yeah,
From
seriously.
what you said. Like it, for me, what the most important is really that understanding, because there are so many I heard, and actually I could recognize even in my life, thinking like, when I get there, then I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then when you get there, you sit and you think, so now what? Right?
100%. Yeah.
So like there is no point really put those expectations anymore, because it's not about expectations. It's just to grasp whatever comes and enjoy the ride, right? Like you said, you are always on the wave or below, whatever it is. You know, if you are below the wave, you can always get up and surf back, you know. So it's just about
Well, you talked
going.
about realigning, or I call it maybe reframing, or you said something else, and I don't want to butcher the term, but reframing your vantage, like your view, like the way your perspective is. And for me, Maslow called it self-actualization, right? It's the becoming that drives us, right? And there are certain inherent needs that you need along the way, but after you've checked those inherent needs off, it's almost like you forgot you even needed them in the first place. And so the idea of, even let's take income or money for an example, because that's probably something everybody is looking to potentially ramp up, and that seems to be universal with some aspects. It's like, once you hit this, I'll be good. It's like, well, that's not the case. And then you realize that it never was about that in the first place. It's about the game. It's about the chase. It's about the reaching and seeing what you become, because people like progress. We all like progress. And I believe that that's us reaching towards something bigger than ourselves, trying to get a glimpse and touch of the creator. And so all of this stuff from a progression standpoint, for me, has been like, okay, cool, this is all fun, but that's the game. And I've got to be able to detach from the physical aspects of achievement, the physical aspects of these arbitrary finish lines that don't exist, and just be engaged with the fact that I'm going to spend the rest of my life seeing how far I can get, how close I can get to the heavens to touch, to say, okay, what was I able to become, in this vessel, in this body, for this short amount of time that I have. And then that relieves a lot of pressure. Honestly, it makes it fun, because now you're just painting, right? Like now you're just coloring. Now you're just seeing what you can create, instead of this heavy energy of, I just got to be able to get to this, finish line, or I've got to be able to get to this destination, or I've got to be able to get to this achievement. And so to me, that's a heavy energy. It's not it's not vast, it's not expansive, it's not creative, it's very it's restrictive. And candidly, I lived in that for a very long time. The first, I'm still unpacking that. I have a coach that I work with every week, and that's a lot of the stuff that we work with is being able to reframe, because for me, I used heavy energy early in my career to drive behavior, chip on the shoulder, something to prove, conditioning of the past, people who hurt me, people who thought I wasn't going to be good enough, I'm not worthy, all these negative, heavy energies that drove me to take the disciplines necessary to win. And that's okay, because in essence, there's some bitterness and some anger in that, right? But on an energy scale like that, it's a mid-level energy. It's not depression. It's not regret. It's not shame, right? That really doesn't allow us to really get into any type of forward motion. So for me, I used that chip on my shoulder as the driver. But what I've learned is there are these beautiful, expansive energy levels of love and gratitude and excitement and giving and curiosity and playfulness that exist way higher than those energy frequencies. And that's what I'm spending my time trying to get better at making sure that I condition myself to get into those before I start my week, before I start my day. Because then it becomes fun, it becomes playful, and it becomes light, and it becomes easy, and I'm in flow. And for me, that has been that's a challenge in the midst of the storm, is to find that peace, but not making expectations on where I need to be or where I should be, and what these arbitrary checkpoints are. has helped kind of take the pressure off and be like, man, I'm just getting to paint today. Let's see what we can create. Like, like I am already enough. I am already successful. It's just a matter of at what level in which does I want to obtain from a material level. So, but it's the idea and the ideology that it's about the reaching for more. That's the game, not necessarily what you can grab along the way, that I have fallen in love with, because I get to discover all these cool things about myself that I didn't know. I get to see the worst of me come out and go, wow, damn, that's the ego. Holy moly, that's gross. Like, where did that come from? I get to see all these different things that I go, man, there's a lot of different pieces of me. And I mean, isn't that kind of the whole human experience, to be able to unpack that and, get to the end of the rainbow and say, man, I really got to live this thing out, and really explore who I am. And I think what a crime and what a shame it is for people to not have the opportunity or the chance to really go deep and explore, their creative, their divinity, in my opinion, of the essence of what it is to be, human. I think personal development is not just about having success in a craft and a career. I think personal development is the self-actualization of a person, in which we get to explore all the different pieces of ourselves. And I love that.
Wow, man, you can really tell that you've dedicated over a decade to this material, because it just like flows right through you. It's incredible. And so I'm curious, when you have people that are coming into your company for the first time, right? And they know there's potential there to make money, and and if they've been following you or they know who you are, they kind of know you put it all out there, right? You're very open and honest, and you share all this stuff with people. So where do you start with someone that, young guy, or it doesn't even have to be young guy, it doesn't matter the age, but someone comes to you and they're like, you know what, I've been like on a hamster wheel for the past 10 years of my life, just grinding out, not really getting anywhere where I want to be. Where do you start with someone like that?
10 pages of a good book a day. That's it. I mean, I wish I could give you some fancy answer, but it's not, because I know that if they don't develop the habit of consuming rich content in regards to their self, they're just simply not going to be able to make the difference, right? It's not the career, it's not where they sit, it's not the challenges that they have. It's the practice of becoming. It's the practice of reaching, and if they can get ingrained in that, then they're going to win. If they can't, then there's nothing I can do. There's no advice I can give them. There's no quote that's going to reframe the way that they look. So for me, it's that simple. Is because I know that's what I've experienced. That's what I've lived, and that's what I've seen. It's not an industry. It's not the job they're in. It's not the business they have. It's not. It's all these externals. They're false. They're not true. It's a story, and that story is predicated off of your belief, and you can change that anytime you want to. But and you're not gonna reframe somebody immediately, right? I can't change their perspective on life by just sitting down with them for an hour and giving them what I know. That doesn't work. But what I can do is I can do what somebody did for me, is I can open the door. I can open the door and say, hey, there is this beautiful abundanceness through this door, but you're the one that has to walk through it. I can simply help you open the door. So that's what my advice would be. And that's what we do at Urban Young. We take somebody brand new and we say, look, we read 10 pages of a good book a day. We do a personal development call every week, where we discuss a chapter every week. We've been running this call for 15 years straight. It's just the slight edge of doing the little things and if you can expose somebody to that, maybe they don't do it every day, but they just start to slightly to be exposed. And then maybe one day, boom, they have their day of decision, and then their path changes, right? So I think just introducing them to the concept and the idea of getting on a path of personal development and how that can impact their life. And because honestly too, it's, success is a progressive realization of some worthy ideal that we have. It's arbitrage. It's the achievement is subjective to whoever's perspective. So the idea of success is funny to me, because it really is just progress, which creates fulfillment. So And if progress is what gives fulfillment and progress is success in essence, then a path of personal development is simply just progressing the self, right? How can you have this external thing without progressing internally? It doesn't exist. You're not in alignment. So if you have it for a short amount of time, you're going to get derailed. You're not going to have it for a very long time because, the external world is a reflection of the internal world. So for me, it's always going to come back to the same thing. Read 10 pages of a good book a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like if you're doing that, if you're reading it, if you're on this call, you're surrounded by other guys that have the same mindset and having the same conversations, that becomes the new voice in the back of your head, right? Like it takes over in a way.
Yeah.
And then that's, it's guiding you every step of the way.
It does. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you the other thing the other thing that changed my life was getting around the right people. And, a mentor of mine said, you're the average of the 5 people that you associate the most with. Your environment in essence creates your reality, because your environment, it conditions your psychology. It conditions what your beliefs are. It conditions how, so if you can get around the right environment, which by the way, personal development is an environment. That's an external thing in which you're immersing yourself and consuming information. But the people that you associate with is everything. And the most profound thing for me was not finding associations that were more powerful. The biggest thing for me was disassociation. Most people say, well, how do I change my associations? How do I get around people that are more positive? How do I get around people that are doing things with their life? How do I get around more successful people that are making big incomes? How do I get around guys and gals that are building big businesses? Well, the answer to that question is you haven't earned the right to get there yet. You have to disassociate from the people that are not. Right. And that's very difficult for people. We all like the idea of finding the right people to associate with. But what we don't like is the fact that in order to make room to fill someone's cup, you have to empty it out. Right. You have to empty your cup in order to receive. And so by disassociating from relationships that I had, it allowed space for other more positive, influential people to come into my life. And that doesn't happen immediately. Right. That doesn't happen like, okay, all of a sudden I disassociate with somebody and now this person comes into my life. It doesn't happen. It might be years, but I left space. If I don't have space, then I'm not going to be able to have that. And so the other thing with disassociation is you don't have to completely cut somebody off, but you can limit your time with them. Right. You can limit the amount of exposure that you get to that. If you're hanging out Friday, Saturday, Sunday on the weekends with people that are good buddies of yours from a long time ago that you've just known forever and they're great, but they're not doing anything with their life, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that you're not going to do anything with your life because on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, you're not having uplifting conversations. You're not having expansive conversations. You're not getting the food for the soul that's going to allow you to reach higher. That's just not how it is. You can't sit in an environment of people that are not doing anything and expect you to do something. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily. Sometimes you need to remove people completely, and I've had to do that, which is not cool. That's a toxic situation. But limiting the time or limiting the exposure that you're getting from things that aren't aligned with your purpose is a hack, because none of us are bigger than our own environment. I'm not bigger than my environment. I'm not. That's why I have a coach. That's why I belong to a company that has a culture. I need the accountability. I need the inspiration. I need everything. Either the group needs you or you need the group. And I need the group a lot all the time. And so figuring out a way to how to hack your environment is a big deal for me. That changed my life because I got around the right people, and all of a sudden those habits that you were speaking about started to rub off. These beliefs started to instill. I would say something and they would challenge me and say, well, what do you mean by that? Or I would say the word can't, and they would say, no, we don't use that word. I currently struggle, and it would be jokingly, but the from an NLP perspective of just conditioning the mind, I started to get exposed to all these concepts, these people that just live and eat and breathe and sleep this stuff. And you start to see that, well, there's a lot, most of them have these things in common. Okay, here's a pattern. Okay, I need to study this. Then I would go back and I would read a book on it because I saw it in real life. So they all kind of work hand in hand. But environment is so important. It's like your kids. It's like, why do you protect your kids and put them in a good environment? Like, if it didn't matter, you would just put them in any environment. That if it was unsafe, if it was toxic, if it was, it doesn't matter. There's a reason for that. And because kids are imprinted by their environment, but we're no different. We're no different. It's just when we're older, we've already got a lot of imprints that have already done, and we got a lot of unlearning to do. But you can unlearn things if you want to. It's just harder. But the first step of that is getting around the right people and getting around the right environment.
I like how you connect everything with nature, because even your body is a nature. This is where you find your driving force, right? Through your body, through your exercises, and creating that environment which you're creating within. Actually, that starts from within, and because you are taking in whatever is important for you. So, and that's great environment. And I think all this is about really how to take that authority back to yourself, right? It's just you become the authority of your path, not somebody else. It's I've seen lately, there's this situation, and maybe, I don't know if you know about this NBA star, right, who gets in situations, right? I don't want to call the names, and everyone anyways talks about that, showing up with the gun, in Instagram or whatever, and people think like, oh, you have to change the friends or whatever, like, is this something you're talking about, right? It's just like how you create your environment so you can actually focus what is the most meaningful, which is your purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we're being imprinted. It's like a piece of hardware, right? And we're this hardware, we're this body, we're this vessel, we're this brain, we're this everything, right? And every day there's software that's just getting imprinted onto this hardware, and every single day, and it's conditioning every single day. Once you're aware of this, you don't try to fight the conditioning. You don't try to go against. It's not like I'm fighting gravity every day. Gravity just is. It is. This is a law. We're not debating it. We don't even understand it, but we are not going to debate, whether gravity exists. Like, it exists. Like, if you are in an environment, it is conditioning you all the time. So the level of awareness of just being aware of this is the first step. The first step to change is become aware. And so a lot of people say, oh, no, those friends don't matter. They don't influence me. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. But, my parents, when I was growing up, birds of a feather flock together. That's what they told me. I don't understand what that means. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. And I dismissed it. Right? I wasn't aware at the time, but that was imprint. Now, they were a great influence. So that had a good environment, and they were colliding. But the fact of the matter is, until I'm aware that that's a law, until I'm aware that that exists, until that's a story that I believe to be true, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to realize that, because I'm not using it to my advantage, So once I learn that, okay, cool, this is gravity exists. Okay, perfect. Let me just abide by the principles and laws of the universe instead of trying to fight it. It becomes effortless. It becomes easy. It's like, okay, cool. Well, instead of me worrying about fighting the conditioning in a bad environment, why don't I just get into a good environment and then just go down the river? Right? I don't need to swim upstream. I'll just float. So becoming aware of that is probably the first, thing that happened for me, was just like, okay, these are actual things, right? These aren't just these aren't just opinions people gave me. These are laws and principles of the universe that exist, and I can choose to fight them, or I could choose to use them in my favor. And at the end of the day, we all have that choice.
Yeah, you just, and I see those things in nature, like in animals, right? When you see that they actually creating their environment to thrive in, right? Like they don't like, for example, antelope, that it's not going to live in Sahara, right? Because there is nothing to eat, but sometimes people want to, like, oh no, let me prove I can survive in Sahara. But what's the point?
Right.
What's the point? You know, there's no point.
You don't have to. You don't have
exactly.
to. Like, and that comes to story too. It's like, oh, life is hard. Is it though? Do you I mean, of course there's friction, but does it have to be? Like, that's your story. And that used to be my story, you know, like success is difficult, you know, it's the world is against you. It's you versus, you know, it's like, look, man, if you want to believe that, if you want to live that story, you can, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like, that's not a law. Like, that's not a principle. That's your story. That's your belief. Like, you can change that, you know, so you can use these things to flow and be effortless, or you can choose to resist. And, you know, resisting is going to slow you down. It's just going to slow you down. And if you can work with, you know, if you can co-create with the creator instead of pretending that you are the creator, you're going to win. You know, like, it's way easier. It's way better. Like, you're trying to do something that you're not the boss. You're just the vessel, you know, like, and you know, I think for me that for a long time, it's like, you know, I perceived, you know, living at cause, right? You ever hear living at cause and effect, living at cause being taking extreme ownership, right? There's a difference between taking responsibility for your life, and then there's a difference between thinking that you can control everything, that you're the alpha and omega, right? That comes from a place of ego. That comes from a place of you're just confused, right? Like, I am not in control of what happens on the macro. I am simply a vessel for it to work through me. And so that comes from a place of ease and grace. That comes from a place of flow. That comes from a place of there's not resistance. Whereas the other one comes from a place of just stress and pressure that I have to manifest and create this stuff. It's like, no. I don't have to do any of that. I don't have to do any of that. That's already done for me. I just have to be willing and able to receive what's already been made available to me. And the difference in that shift will change your life, because it changed my life. Now, here's the caveat to that. I was able to create under that old conditioning anyway. So I'm not saying you can't create. I'm not saying it doesn't work, because it does, but I will tell you that there are secondary consequences to living that way. And I promise you don't like the secondary consequences that come from that. So from a success standpoint, someone would look at me and go, okay, you did it. You achieved this success, which that's funny too, right? Because it's arbitrage. But, you know, you were able to achieve this. Yeah, but at what cost? At what cost, right? If personal development is the game, external achievement is not what you're after. Like, I'm looking for personal progress, and if I can't achieve at a high level and be fulfilled and happy on the inside, and getting all this abundance from a happiness level, like, and how about my relationships? You know, not having all this fallout that comes from that. I mean, that's not progress to me. Like, okay, maybe you need to learn from that in the beginning stages. You know, that was something you could learn from. But again, that's a flow and a law that I'm learning right now is just like, you know, be careful what you set in motion, because, you know, you might win the battle, but you'll lose the war, you know. And so, and that, for me, that still comes back to personal development. That's why you're just never done, you know, because we're human. And the beautiful part about a human is we're completely messed up. You know, we're very complex creatures, and we have all these unbelievable things working at the same time. So that's been a fun journey. I'm still on it. And candidly, that's what makes it fun every day is the internal, not the external.
And that's where you're getting your sense of fulfillment from, and not necessarily from those external goals.
Yeah, you know, I love the achievement side, because, you know, that's objective. So it allows me to feel that I'm making progress, but those are only inherently valuable to me because I'm feeling the progress. And so what happened to me, Mark, is that in essence, I'm feeling this progress, but what happens is I'm getting this internal pull of like, it's just too much friction. So I'm not feeling a progress from a personal standpoint. I'm feeling a progress from a professional level. And so there have been times in my life where I'm feeling both of those and I feel completely full. And there are times in my life where I might be externally progressing, but I don't feel fulfilled, and I feel friction. I feel a fight. And where I'm getting the most fulfillment on my journey right now is being in harmony with both of those two. Because that's fun for me. That's exciting for me. That's light. That's easy. And you know, I'm still working on that. You know, some weeks are better than the other, and some days are easy and great and flowing, and some are not. Sometimes that old, you know, baby tyrant comes out inside of me that wants to fight everything and will his way to the finish line. And so for me, when I'm most fulfilled in my journey right now is when both of those are in sync. You can feel it in your body. You can feel it's just light. It's creative. It's much more in touch with the divine. It's much more in touch with expansiveness than it comes from, judge me on these external arbitrage things, like, because at the end of the day, it's you got to be with you. At the end of the day, when you go back to your house and everybody wants to give you, even if you're getting external praise for what you've been done, when it comes down to it, you've got to look in the mirror with you. You have to be with you, and you don't get to detach from that. You don't get to separate from that, and so is this working? Is this not working? Like, is this sustainable or is this not sustainable? Is this uplifting or is this not uplifting? And so, I'm definitely getting much more fulfillment at this part of the journey from when I'm alone and I'm silent and I'm quiet of, do I feel in alignment? And that's a cool next phase, I guess, from this journey.
So if you took everything you know now, right, and you were going to reverse engineer it and start over completely, starting tomorrow, let's say you sell your company today and you start over tomorrow and you don't even know like what you're going to do, how would you do it differently in terms of, because now you know what you know and you've reached a certain level of success and no one can ever take that away from you. So even if you lost your business tonight, you'd start over tomorrow, what would you do differently?
It's a good question. That's a great question.
All right, so let me help you for a second. I don't want to cut you off, but what I mean is, like, I think you're at this incredible precipice of your life where, you're realizing what's really important, right? But what I also heard you saying was that you started something at some point and it's gained momentum and there's power behind it. So it's kind of like, and to take what you were saying before, you're surfing those waves now, right? But you're also like, how do I want to feel while I'm surfing those waves?
Yes. Yes.
So, all right. So
if I was to start over, I would tell my future self, it's going to be okay. Enjoy the ride, man. It's going to be okay. If you continue to do what you're doing, it's inevitable to end up where you think you're going to end up. It's inevitable. It's not luck. It's not chance. It's not these things got to go your way. It's inevitable. So just relax and enjoy the scenery, man, because you're not going to get this stuff back. And the stress and the thinking that you're not enough and trying to look for external achievements along the way to justify your worthiness and to show the world that you can do it, and all of these self-limiting beliefs that are self-inflicted, they cause us to not enjoy the real gift, which is the reaching. It's the reaching that's the gift, right? And so if you know that you're going to win the game, this is what my coach told me a couple of years ago, and it changed my life. He said, if you're playing a basketball game, you turn the ball over, but you know you're going to win. How do you feel about the turnover? I was like, damn, that hit home for me. I was like, it's going to be fine. He's like, you won, man. You win. You win. I know the end. You win. So that doesn't mean don't get up and do the work, but that just means that just realize you win and enjoy the process. And you hear how enjoy the process, it's the prize in the process, but just the stress comes from us not knowing if it's going to work out. The stress comes from the idea of, like, if I don't achieve this, there's something wrong with me, or I'm not worthy, or, there's this, all this self-inflicting stories and beliefs that inhibit us from allowing our creative juices to come out and just flow. And so knowing what I know now, I would go back to myself and say, hey, young dude, relax. You're going to be fine. You are worthy. You are going to be great. You are doing the thing. It's going to work out. Like, enjoy this. You won't get this back. Enjoy this. That would be, I guess, my biggest, if I could talk to younger Brett Young, I guess that's what I would tell him.
I would like to come back to this part of friction, and I recognized actually in life, in order for us to move on or to create more meaningful situations or relationship, we have to create the friction. And what I recognize in you, that you learn how to create that friction within you, not on external, because most of people, they just create frictions on external. They go to someone else and just get in fights and whatever, so they can find out the truth of relationship or whatever, But what I recognize in you, you created that friction within you working out. You create that conflict within to solve the friction of you willing to move further that situation. And I think that's your key of success.
That's interesting. I've never put two and two together. That's a really cool connection. Yeah, for when it's like this mini win, you're not worthy. You're not doing it. What if it doesn't work out? But if you go do something really difficult and hard and you get through it, you feel good about yourself. You start this momentum. You start this, man, I can overcome this friction. I can lean into this discomfort, so that's a cool way to connect those. I've never put those two and two together, but I will tell you the connection of the physical body and doing really difficult things has been a massive shift in my life, because I started to become a different person, and I started to do the things that other person would do, and because I started to do the things that this other person would do, I started to become that person, and that person wins. That person is able to handle pressure. That person is able to do the thing at a high level. That person's able to do the thing when they don't want to. And so that is a cool perspective, because that was a huge shift in my life when that became a priority, not because of anything from a physical and a health standpoint. Like, that's all just that's just an extra cool byproduct. It is 100% for me doing something that is in alignment with who the person is that I want to become. And that's one of the quickest ways that you can do that. So that's cool. That's a cool perspective.
Yeah, this is, I think, even to put in the perspective for anyone, I think, who listens, create the friction within, create that find that edge where you can really step into that, I can do it, like within. Don't create those situations externally. Don't look for those motivations from outside. Just really find a way how you can explore it within, because that is going to change your life. And I think this is what you are doing, and you are inspired. Actually, through you, I got this message for myself,
That's cool.
And I love that. And
That's
thank
really
you for
cool.
this.
Oh man, that's really cool. I'm humbled by that. Thanks, man.
And what's wild too, Agris, is that listening to Brett speak for almost the past hour and realizing that you obviously have read a lot of personal growth books, have taken workshops, seminars, had mentors, coaches, and this stuff it's your vocabulary now, right? Like, you don't really have to memorize anything. I'm sure you didn't prepare yourself. You're just showing up and it's all right there. It's easily accessible. But what's amazing is that, Agris and I talk about the same stuff, but we are always talking about it from a spiritual perspective. And what I realized is that it's like 100% in direct alignment, even down to the language, right? It's incredible alignment. How many things did he say, Agris, that we were like, yep. I mean, and we're talking about stuff that goes back to the I Ching, ancient texts, some of the greatest masters. Like, that's the stuff that we read and talk about. And it's amazing how it just fuses perfectly into your world of personal development and business and achievement and success. and fulfillment and all that stuff. It's amazing.
That's cool, man. That's really cool.
This is what happens, this is where the both worlds meet and unite, and I think that's what humanity are looking for, that how we can unite those worlds and finally do it together. So we don't need to go deep into spirituality or deep into business or whatever, to find it that everything is actually the one. That's the one. It's the same thing, and to find that language which is uniter, that everyone speaks the same language, and I think that's the task I'm looking for, how to create this union from all walks on the earth, so we can finally unite in one language and live this life and enjoy the progress, the wave, and even if there is, we call it mistake, the greatest mistakes are the greatest reveals and the greatest progress intentions. So, man, this conversation is just, I loved it. It just passed by extremely fast, and I thank you so much for you sharing all this wisdom, because I think there's people could listen it back and find for them like I found for myself.
Well,
the most meaningful thing,
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
And before we hang up, the one thing I want to say that there was so much in what you shared today that I'm going to have to go back and listen to it several times so I can really, unpack it, as we say. But one of the things that you said that I wanted to highlight that really stuck out to me was like, well, there was a lot, but one thing was you have to start with where you are. Like a lot of us are trying to be ready. Like we're like, we want to change our life. We want to be more successful. And so we're like, oh, we're going to do whatever we can to be ready. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'm always like thinking about the 10 years, like what's it going to be like in 10 years? And I can actually go through the whole process in my mind. And then I go, well, then do I really want to do that? Well, do I really want to do that? Because I know I could actually see it, taste it, feel it, what it's going to be like at the end. But what I heard you saying is, of course you do. I had to stop myself from cursing there. Of course you do, because that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for what happens at the end. You're looking to discover parts of you that you don't get to discover unless you go after that. So, and that's, the biggest part for me is like, like the beginning stages when you said that there were certain things that were driving your success, right? Like the energy and the momentum was maybe not coming from a sense of personal fulfillment. It was a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of, I'll prove to the world I'm good enough and all this stuff. But was there anything wrong with that? No, because there was energy there. And you took that energy and you started pushing the ball forward, right? And you got the momentum going. Eventually you got to a point where you realize like, okay, this is not going to sustain me. But the ball's already rolling, right? You didn't stop the ball. You're like, now I have to figure out a new generator of information to keep that going, But I just love that, because I know from my perspective, I'm always looking at it like, well, I don't want to start something from the point of nobody else is doing this right, so damn it, I'll do it better, because that's not very spiritual. But what I heard you saying was, what's spiritual is proving to yourself what you're capable of, like taking parts of yourself that you haven't had a chance to meet yet and allowing yourself to express those parts of yourself. And so who cares what gets the ball going in the beginning? You'll catch up to that. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Yeah, I love the word generator. It's like, man, we're all in different seasons of our life, and different seasons of our life have different triggers in regards to what's going to get us out of bed. And so if you can gamify that based upon where you are, you're going to win. The old self, if I were to talk to him about fulfillment and, expansiveness and openness and creativity, he would have looked at me and said, you're crazy, dude. I don't care about any of that. Right. I'm a savage. Like, I just want to, whatever. And so it wouldn't have resonated, right? And that's, so to your point, like, I sometimes have, regret that creeps in about the way that, some fallout. And, my beautiful wife has been here, obviously the whole journey. And, I haven't always been as, engaged, and I haven't always been, the most loving when it comes home to come home after a really hard day. Like sometimes you're in this killer mindset. And so I'm becoming better with that. And that's one of the things that, but my coach always reminds me, it's like, hey, that's part of your journey. Like that's okay. Like that's all right. Like that got you to here, and you needed that to get you to here. Right. If you want to change it, then change it. But without that, you wouldn't be in this situation. So you can't live that way. There's nothing good that comes out of that. So to your point, that's a great word generator, because all of us have different motivations, different triggers within our life, and trying to figure out what those are is a constant change and a constant fun. And that's kind of what we talk about, the exploring the layers, because all of us have a lot of them.
Right. Yeah. We have, that's something that I've learned in the past year, is that there are so many parts of us, and it's about learning and meeting and integrating those parts of us into our life. And then, in doing so, we're able to just do so much more,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm picturing you when you started off your journey, and I appreciate your honesty and sharing that vulnerable side of you. Like, this is where I was, and then this is how I got to where I am today. And it's a beautiful story. So thank you, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming. And man,
it's awesome.
Keep it up, man.
Appreciate it. You guys, God bless you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. We'll be in touch soon, and I'm very grateful.
Sounds great.
Thank you.